We're not on Twitch, honey. We're on YouTube. We'll give it a second.
We already got a downvote.
Oh my God. We already got a downvote? Oh,
yep.
Jesus. How's that possible? How's that even possible?
According to YouTube, we are live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Random Respawn, where we talk about gaming news, gaming things, and gaming stuff. Caleb has told us that we already have one downvote, and that was before we even started, so I don't know what's going on there.
Because we're 3 minutes late. That was a downvote for our lack of punctuality.
It's all right.
Oh, go. Now we got an upvote. It's fine. It's the world is back.
Everything's balanced. I'm Vajasha Raptor.
I'm
to your okay, yep, and then to my
and I'm Grant Marshall. What's up?
Right?
We're just gonna ruin this whole thing for you, Josh. I'm sorry.
That was the hard part.
Yep.
So today's episode is brought to you by the letter I for illusion. Marshall was ruining games for himself as usual by reading the endings, and then this game will come up a lot. So the newest Far Cry. And so he didn't want to play because he thought that the ending was so bad that playing the game would have made him angry and or sad. So then we kind of started to think, and we thought this would be a pretty cool topic about games with multiple endings and the illusion of not games have done it well or poorly, and if we think that some games have suffered because they offered you choices and then in the end they not matter, or if that was actually part of the story ended up helping the story. So I guess to kick it off, it can be either of you guys.
Hello, Eric.
Yeah.
Welcome. Yeah, it was something that I was thinking about too. Oh, and we should say that we're talking about choice and endings and things like that. So there will be spoilers.
So there will be spoilers. Just
try to
warn
avoid
everyone
them as
right
best as I can. But
there are
for
going
sure,
to be spoilers.
Yeah, for sure, going to be spoilers for Far Cry 5 because that's a big topic that Marshall wants to talk about, and I'll probably end up giving some things away about the newest Prey that came out as well, because that was part of what spawned this topic idea. So I beat Prey on stream the other day, and it has a system in it to allow for multiple endings, and in a way to kind of give some of the choices that you made throughout the game some of the moral choices, meaning at the end of it all, where unlike like a Mass Effect game or some stuff like that, will have a meter during the game where you have like a Paragon or a Renegade system, where as you do more douchey things, you get this other meter that's visible. The Prey, it kind of wraps it up and it changes some of the dialogue throughout the game, but then has a way to tie it all in at the end of the game. And I thought that was kind of interesting. So just kind of wanted to talk about that, some experiences we've had with games that give us a lot of micro decisions that end up not being very big in the macro. Like, you're making a decision, it's like, oh, I met this person and I can kill them. Should I? What weight does that hold and throughout for the rest of the game? And things like that, because a lot of games, I know with Mass Effect 3, that was a big deciding factor for a lot of people, was the ending of that was just didn't matter what you did, all of your choices at the end just amounted to what's the last button you want to push and get
what color gradient would you like for your ending.
It's like that was literally it. So all of your choices, while they might have felt meaningful throughout the game because you're like shaping your character and you're role playing as whatever character you're going through the game, but it at the end of it all, it just amounted to nothing. It all just tied up into these final three choices that didn't matter, regardless of what else you'd done.
Yeah. Well, specifically for Mass Effect, I do have, I don't know if now's the time to kind of talk about Mass Effect, because it kind of touches on a lot of things. So the biggest thing about Mass Effect is I don't think that you can actually have a game with lasting choices that spans across multiple games.
Witcher 3, I would argue.
The thing is,
right now.
So Witcher did a pretty good job because it kind of like asks you a couple questions beginning. But I mean, so this is kind of why I'm saying this is you couldn't kill off like a character that was, you couldn't kill off like Rex or something like that in the first Mass Effect, because if someone picked it up on the second Mass Effect, they would just be basically a Rex character that fills that void that was missing from the first one. And so going from game to game, choices or things that or decisions that you make can't be super duper duper permanent, because essentially when a new game comes out, you can't expect everyone to already be invested in the lore and have made those choices. So
Yeah.
if unless you decide to just start a completely new game every single time, um, kind of like, I mean, like that's not a choice driven game, but it doesn't matter. Or even BioShock Infinite, it has nothing to do with the previous BioShocks, even though it's a sequel. Stuff like that, you can have actual lasting choices and consequences. But for me, The Witcher 3 did a very good job, but it's kind of it's just you can't necessarily can't kill off your girlfriend in the first game and then just have a girlfriend in the second game who's exactly like the first girlfriend, because they were like, we need the girlfriend character. You need to be able to fight for something, and we also need something that has been used and super contrived at this point.
Yeah, and how do you
I
carry that across like what different players decide to do from game to game? Like what becomes the decisions that are canon to keep the story going forward? So yeah, I agree. Like
So in a sequel, that's difficult, and also in a game where choice is the game. So Mass Effect, choice was the game, and they
Oh yeah,
didn't give
definitely.
you a choice at the end, which is why there was such a backlash. Whereas in the Telltale games, gameplay is not necessarily the game. The choices are the game. And so, I mean, even between the first Walking Dead and the second Walking Dead, from Telltale, some of the things carry over, but most of it is wrapped up pretty solidly at the end of the first season. I mean, the as dies no matter what. You can't save them. You know what I mean? It's like there are a
Yeah.
lot of things that happen that are kind of scripted, despite you being able to choose stuff throughout the rest of the game. And then all those choices don't necessarily matter too much in season 2, because you're kind of given a fresh slate with some reoccurring characters from the previous episode.
Here's the problem with The Walking Dead, though, is any type of carryover that, like for instance, in the first Walking Dead to the second one, remember Omar and then his wife? Uh,
To
it was
kill them, right?
it was by the I apologize because Josh, on my end, you're kind of breaking up a bit sometimes, so it's like sometimes I can't hear you, so this may be a little bit difficult on my end. I don't know if Caleb's fine on his end, but specifically, it was with Omar. It was kind of hinted at the very end of Walking Dead 1, where it's like, what's her face is just alone, and she sees these two people on the hill. But
Oh,
in
and it was
carrying over,
those two. Yes.
yeah, and it was those two. But carrying on, literally in the first like 10 minutes of Walking Dead 2, um, Omar dies straight up, just gets shot, and then I don't know if it was ever found out what happened to his wife. I think it was just simply his wife went nuts and left. Um, but it's almost like the same thing with going from 2 to 3, where if you had, oh, I've now forgotten his name, freaking what's his face from 1, who was like the kind of the redneck kind of guy who was like looking for the boat in Savannah.
Bill?
What's his name?
Oh, I made that
Uh,
up.
I mean, it's been so long, but he's like one of the main carryovers that you can actually bring over into the second game where he will survive. And it's kind of a huge deal because you can have him survive the entire second game of all the decisions you make and all that stuff. And then they do the exact same thing into the third game where literally like the first like 5 minutes of the game, he dies. And it's like, stop doing this to me. Like it's in a way, like I get it where you have to have kind of a new slate to give you more choices to do stuff. But at the same time, it's like you keep doing it to the point where it's like, it doesn't, to me, it doesn't matter what I do in this game because in the next one, all of that just gets erased. It's like, oh, you did all this time to save him and all that. Yeah, he's dead. Whatever.
I feel like that's what I was saying.
The problem is I can't hear you a lot.
That's yeah, that's kind of what I was saying. Was, I mean, going from one game to another, it's like even if you had the quote unquote illusion of a choice, they clearly are
There
wiping
isn't
the
much of a
sanity.
choice.
That's the problem with the Mass Effect games, and I think there's just a problem with having choices in games that span across sequels, not episodes, but actual sequels of
And
games.
this is why I would argue, because with The Witcher 3, how you said in the beginning of that game, you actually have like a questionnaire That's only if you do not have a save file from the second game. Straight up, you don't get that questionnaire at all, I believe, and you will straight up just carry over all the stuff that happened in the second game. By the way, howdy Wallace. And again, one of the major things that you could do in the second game is you kill Letho, who's the bad guy, who's the whole reason why you're being framed. And you can keep him alive, and then he will literally come back in the third game as a whole side quest, which I think you can kill him again if you want to, or you can keep him alive, and then he will help you in the final battle. And that is a thing that you can do, and he can stay alive the whole time. It's been a while since I looked at it. Apparently, there are like 16 variations of the ending in Witcher 3, and that spans over like a lot of stuff that happens between 2 and 3. I don't know how much there is between 1 and 2 though. I don't think a lot because of how different 2 was to 1.
Yeah, I don't think anything from 1 carries over to 2.
Yeah. Because I think you lose your memory again.
Off with no memory in the second one, but I also don't remember it that well.
Yeah. By the way, according to my girlfriend who is making sure that our audio is okay, Josh, she can also hear you breaking up as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's just your internet in general right now, or
it very well could be.
It's it's whatever. You just move. It's fine. You're still setting things up. Big deal.
Yeah.
Let me know if it gets too bad, and I'll try and figure something out.
It does get really muddy when you've got a series that spans across sequels. Because, yeah, like the Bioshock games, like you mentioned, Bioshock 1 happened, but then Bioshock 2 was a prequel story-wise. So
which had no bearing at all on the first game, which was fine.
Well, I mean,
it was a completely different story and all
it was
stuff.
Characters that were in the first game. Like Tenenbaum was in Bioshock 2 a lot, and she was one of the main like people you talked to. But yeah, you didn't,
but it wasn't like
anything.
in a significant way. It was just, hey, remember this character? She's also still here, and you blah 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 blah.
Right.
It's not like
there also
crazy.
isn't a whole lot of. There isn't a whole lot of choice in the Bioshock games anyway. Like with Bioshock 1, there's like what, 2 endings? I think there's just 2 different endings.
There's like extremely good and extremely, and that's actually I was going to bring up Bioshock with those type of endings where it's just, you become Mother Teresa or you literally blow up the earth.
Or you are Hitler. It's one of the two. Choose.
Yeah, all of the Bioshock morality system for the endings was based around what you did with the little sisters, whether you like saved a certain number or killed a certain number. And there might have been 3 endings. Like there might have been you saved over.
I think there was. I think it was remember. I think there's just 2 in the first one.
Yeah, maybe it was the second game that had 3 endings where like they had a middle ground as well. Like you were better than average good. You were okay, like whatever neutral, and then the evil. But yeah, a lot of times, and Bioshock isn't really a game that's decided, like there isn't, it's not a driven by choice game so much as like a Mass Effect or even a Witcher. Like there are some side quests and things that you can do, but there isn't a lot of tough philosophical like, oh, should I kill? Like there's a couple of situations where like you can kill this person or you can't, but it doesn't really have any bearing on anything. It's just like whatever you choose to do.
So that is definitely a weakness in the first 2, but that was actually one of the things that I liked in Bioshock Infinite, because I do think that it only has like the one ending.
It is. I'm pretty sure it's straight up just the one ending, and that's it.
Yeah.
Where you have to kill yourself.
Yeah. So the choices you do in the game
don't matter,
and that's a very philosophical thing that the game actually. I mean, it starts off where you get to choose like heads or tails with a coin flip, and it doesn't matter.
But the thing is, the reaction to the 2 is actually different. Which again, the whole point of that scene is just to try and give you a hint of there's something going on. And if you actually, because I remember going back through that game again and then looking at every single little breadcrumb they dropped, and they dropped a lot of breadcrumbs to give you this idea of what the ending actually was, and which I like. Even though I wasn't a huge fan of the ending, I can still appreciate it. So because it didn't really kind of come out of nowhere, they hinted it the whole way through, literally since the beginning of the game when you're being rowed to the lighthouse, because it's the 2 twins there rowing you, and again they bring that back later on. but again, which goes back to me with Far Cry 5 and why I don't want to buy it, I don't want to play it, is because like the ending is a real big twist ending. It's not a good ending by any means at all, and that's technically the good ending of it. Um, and the problem with that for me is it literally comes out of nowhere. There's no subtlety to maybe this might happen. It just happens. And for me, like the whole thing with Far Cry, that game is you're supposed to be taking back with your militia this cult who took over this town area in Montana. It's basically like a doomsday cult, and they're crazy and all that jazz, and it's cool, and you're taking back your territory and all that stuff. And it's like the ending kind of nullifies all the work you did, and I'm just like, like for me, like I wanted that kind of a payoff of like doing all that bullshit to be able to get something out of it, but because there's like really nothing at all, and like I haven't done enough research to it, but if you do the good ending, I want to say you literally can't go back to keep playing the game. Like it pretty much ends it for you. So if you
Really?
missed anything, you have to start over.
That
And like,
sucks.
it's like, nope, I don't want to do that. It's one of those kind of endings. I'm just like, that's bad. Like,
Wow.
and it just completely kills it for me. Because when I first saw the game, it seemed interesting, and watching people play, I'm like, this actually seems really fun. But after that ending, I'm like, I think I'm good. I don't want to have to go through all that, realizing it means nothing. Like all the work you're doing in the game means absolutely nothing, which is really dumb. Like
so is it
oh.
I'm just curious to know, like, because that, I don't know, that's not something that's like ever bothered me in a game at all, because
It depends on the game.
most of the time it ends up being like you play the game however you want to play the game, and then the ending happens. And then there are games that have multiple endings, but most of the time they are just like it's one little line of dialogue that's different, or it's like we were talking about, where it's just a massively good or massively evil kind of ending. So it's never really bothered me that you can get to the end however you want, and it's the same ending for everybody. And like none of your is it because the game is is this open world with lots of little decisions and side quests and things? Is that why it bothers you so much? That
it's a little bit of that, where it's like the whole point again with Far Cry, stemming back from Far Cry 3, is you're trying to take back this territory. You're doing all these missions for all these people, you're making buddies with them and all that stuff, and like there's a lot of character development. And the reason I think B for me is like the story's actually not bad, like at all. Like there's actually really good character development. I think like all the enemies seem really cool and all that jazz, and I think it's because I like the story and the setting and all that so much that like it really lets me down. It's like it doesn't matter, and I'm just like, why? If it was kind of a crappier game, like if the story was stupid, like it wouldn't really bother me as much. And that's the weird thing about it. Like if this was like Far Cry 3 story, I maybe not care about it as much. But again, with the Far Cry 3, I gave up after Voss died. And it's like, oh, this is the real back. I'm like, no, I liked Voss. Like he was way more of an interesting character. And you killed him. And it's like there's still like a third left of the game. Like,
yeah, because I was gonna say, didn't Far Cry 3 only, or no, maybe it wasn't 3. It was didn't Far Cry 4? I mean, that only has like 2 endings, right? Or the secret ending and 2 endings.
No. Oh, if I remember, okay, so there's the secret ending where if you stay with Pagan Min, you wait with him.
You just wait. You just wait,
You just wait 10
and the
minutes.
Game ends. It's just awesome.
It's not even that. It's just, okay, we'll go see your mom's grave now. And you go, he brings you to your grave, to your mom's grave. And again, that's the whole reason why you're there. And apparently, again, with Pagan Min's character is he was very close to your character's mom and all that stuff. So there was all that. And then there were the 2 different parties that you could work with. It was the militant
the girl and
progressive
the guy.
movement led by the woman named Amita. Might as well call her Amita Sarbeesian. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's a joke. I'm not too sure if that's actually legit though. Or the other side, who her side was super like militant progressive. The other side was this kind of super religious dude who was high all the time and like trying to push drugs. And it's like both sides were garbage. And supposedly the endings are side with one of them, kill Pagan, or you let Pagan live and he will straight up say, okay, I'm going to leave. all that blah 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 blah. And then he essentially gives you the option then of kill both these assholes, you take over, which I think is the better ending, I think, because both the sides that you're working with who are the good people, they're awful.
So there were a couple endings. Okay, it's more
Yes.
than I thought there were. I never beat it, obviously, but
I never
basically
even
what I'm
played
hearing
it, so
from your Far Cry 5 laments is not even so much that your choices don't matter. It's just the direction of the story isn't what you wanted it to be, and like the what they were banking on for the big twist ending was not something that you liked, and so that wrapped up in the everything you've done in the game so far. Now what does bother me is the not being able to continue with like the post game, like that's
would you like me to explain and
no
actually spoil why?
No, I know why. I just think
it's
that's pretty shitty that they don't at least let you load like your last save before you go
and
talk
again
to the
that's
guy.
why it's bad writing, because they wrote themselves into a corner doing that. It's like you can't go back, and it's like, but what if I had to do more achievements? What if I wanted to do more with that world?
I just don't understand why it wouldn't just load like the previous save before you go trigger the last thing, you know?
Yeah, which is what they do in every single game.
But the problem is that when you try and load in, well, even if you try to do that before, you're already in like the final boss fight, basically.
Yeah.
And it's like the only way you can really screw it with it is if you try and move it all in the area you are in, you trigger the end. But I think there's a way you can kind of break it where you try and fast travel out. And so
it's ridiculous that you need to even like try and break it.
Right. Yeah, I think that's pretty silly.
Every Ocarina of Time game, you beat the game, you restart it, and it places you right in front of Ganon's castle. So you just turn around and do whatever you want. Like I don't know why they didn't.
Yeah, so it's interesting because games that are not a linear in design, or ones that are more open world, or even like the kind of indie games that I like to play that are action adventure where you've got things that you collect and lots of backtracking and all of this. And I'm actively trying to not use the term Metroidvania since our last podcast on it. I've like it's really hard.
I know, but
I've been living my life
now.
trying to not use those terms ever since our podcast. So, but anyway,
it's Demon Souls hard.
Yeah, this is the Dark Souls of trying to change your life.
The Dark Souls of my life.
The Demon Souls of it, yeah.
So
this is the Demon Souls of Dark Souls.
Games like that, they're filled with decisions in how you want to play the game. And like, am I the kind of person who's going to use this item in this case? It can be that kind of a small decision, or am I going to do these side quests? Do I care about the characters that I'm interacting with? Like those kinds of things that don't necessarily ever, or they don't have to, but they usually don't have any bearing on the like main story arc. Like they are side things. You can do them, you can not do them, and like that is a choice for a player. And there are the crazy RPG scenarios that have like hundreds or thousands of possible endings based on all of those little micro decisions that lead up to an end. I haven't actually seen any of those. I haven't played through any of those games. I haven't spent a lot of time on it, but I know that exists. But I guess what are the choices that you like to see in games? Like what are the kinds of things that you like to make choices on that make a game interesting for you? And like how is that represented in a game that's fun for you?
One game that I occasionally go back to, I don't know if either of you played it, but it's Spec Ops: The Line. That came out a couple years back, and it's essentially the story of Heart of Darkness retold. And so I knew that going into the game, like, oh, this is going to be an unhappy game. It is not a happy game at all whatsoever. And that game completely fucks with you, like no joke. Like there is a part where you are doing an objective.
Awesome.
Oh no, it's amazing. Where it's like there's a part where you're doing an objective and you fall and you get knocked out and you basically enter a new area. And then just if you didn't pay attention to it, your game goes objective updated, go deeper. And you're like, that wasn't my objective. That game completely messes with you. And essentially there are multiple like choices you have during the game. And as it turns out, when you find out at the end, none of it actually mattered because you're off your rocker of the stuff, the choices that you have.
Yeah, and
And the thing is, a lot of the choices, even still, have absolutely no bearing at all of you progressing the story. It is just simply a morality test for yourself and not for the game. It is fascinating, and it's one of those where it's become a meme. It's like the best thing to do is not play the game at all, and you have to turn it off. And but it is basically a breakdown and a discussion of why the hell are we playing these games that do these awful fucking things.
Where you kill people nonstop and
Or
yeah, it's
one of my favorite things about the game is the beginning of the game starts off with this crazy helicopter chase where it's like a turret sequence where you're a gunner in a chopper, and it cuts to black or cuts to white, and it goes then back to how it all started the day before, and then literally when you get up back to that scene and you're starting it, which by the way your main character is Nolan North, so of course it's like it's a Nolan North game, blah, blah, blah. It's that character, and he progresses. It kind of plays on that too, where it's like it's kind of the run-of-the-mill dude, but he gets crazy over time. And it's like when you start that turret sequence up again, because you play the whole thing over again, like in the kind of towards the beginning of it, he's like, wait, this doesn't make any sense. And your sniper Lupo goes, what are you talking about? And he goes, I mean, we've already done this. And I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, it's like, holy shit. It's so good. That game, there are times where you die, and instead of loading, the screen fades to white, and then it fades back in with your character back at the previous checkpoint going, what the fuck? And you just keep playing. You're like, it does that constantly, constantly, constantly. And you just get worse and worse and worse. And it's so good. But the gameplay itself, unfortunately, is kind of mediocre. It's just a run-of-the-mill third-person shooter. But, you know, you could probably, if you find it for cheap, do it. It's so good.
It's one of those games where I feel like, I mean, it's not supposed to be hard to play, but it's such generic like duck and cover and shoot things that I feel like
It
that
plays
was
on that too, yes, because that's what you're thinking.
right. That's almost a little bit of the point.
Which
But
again, which is why they have Nolan North starring as basically Nolan North, his generic voice, which you've heard a million
Spec
times
Ops,
over.
the line is excellent, and it is
so
also
good.
terrible at the same time.
Yes.
In terms of mentally. But so back to Caleb's question, a game that I think of that I really enjoyed the choices you can make were Catherine.
Hmm.
And
That has a
Catherine,
lot of choices. Yes.
it has a ton of choices,
Yes,
and
it
even choices,
does.
and it's not good and bad. It really,
It's
it's just
just
like,
mm.
it's just like it's either red karma or blue karma. And so, I mean, granted, you know what some of them are. It's like, do I keep talking to this other girl who is not my girlfriend? Yeah, I mean, that's clearly a bad
Yeah,
decision, but it doesn't call them good and bad, which is they're just decisions, which is
it's just
great.
choices. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, all
And
the
then
endings aren't really bad endings. Like even the bad ending is just kind of you just go down this path and like, whatever. And it's kind of cool. It's like it doesn't make you feel like an awful person and all that jazz, right?
you've got like they've got like 9 endings. It's like really good, medium good, normal good, like really neutral,
It
neutral,
it's
neutral, like
like
neutral bad, and they're all
three major endings with like three for each of them three slight variations, right?
exactly, yeah.
Something along
They're
those.
like
It's
3, yeah,
it's
3 are exactly. I mean,
it's
not exactly. They're all,
wedding, space program, demon, right? Something along those lines. I love the neutral ending is fuck all this shit. I'm going to
going to
space.
space, and he does right. And then the only thing that basically differentiates them is like if you are on the highest tier of whichever good,
Yeah.
neutral, or other, it just adds like a 10-second cutscene at the end of the credits. So it's not
Yeah,
even like
pretty much.
something crazy, but it's I really enjoyed the choices in that game, and then just this talking about. I mean, I know we always I always end up asking, at what point do you think that a choice system was made? Do you think that this was like midway through development, or do you have a game like Stanley Parable
Mm.
where literally made to have an insane amount of endings? Or is it kind of like, I mean, even the first Resident Evil had different endings.
Yeah,
Whether or
Resident Evil 1 had
not,
quite a number.
It's true, yeah.
so at what point do you think, or like, I mean, Mass Effect, they were like, this is going to be a decision driven game, and then they kind of dropped that ball. BioShock Infinite was like, we'll have decisions, but they don't mean anything, and you'll see why they don't mean anything. And then you've got
Right.
near
Breakups
Autom
line, you know,
right, near
same way.
Automata. Yeah, Automata, whatever. You've got the
Near,
newest
Near Automata, I believe, has
That has a bunch of
breakups.
endings, isn't it? Like 26 or something?
Well, a lot of them are
like
joke
26 endings
Oh, okay.
are joke endings, but you've got a game like that, but it's despite it being joking in some of those endings, there are like 3 or 4 like main actually maybe even 6 like real actual main endings,
But
but
the thing is with those endings, even though the ending happens, you still keep going, right? Like if I remember correctly.
no, there's I'm talking about like so basically you have to play the game 3 times. You literally
That's
have
right.
to play it.
They basically pull another Nier where it's like you have to play the game multiple times to get the to keep going with the endings and all that stuff. Yeah.
So you
Hmm.
have to play it 3 times, and then at the end of the 3rd playthrough, there's like I think 26 endings. You know what I mean? But like you said, a lot of them are joke endings. So a game like that, I feel like choices were implemented or thought of way early on.
Yeah.
Whereas kind of like Silent Hill 2, it's like I mean you've got the UFO ending and stuff like that. You've
I
got some
mean,
crazy stuff
UFO ending
happening.
has been in basically every single Silent Hill game as a joke, as just a recurring
Has
thing. Oh yeah, it's great.
absolutely. But it's one of those things like where uh Silent Hill, the first one, it's not so much a choice as it is how you play. So if you accidentally end up getting someone killed, it's not necessarily like choose this or choose that. It's like if you weren't able to prevent the cop from getting killed, I think you're always going to get the bad ending.
Hmm.
So I mean, it's I guess it goes more than just choices you make in a game. Whether or not you can complete kind of secret objectives in order to get one ending over the other.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because so I want to talk about my experience with Prey a little bit. Yeah, Wallace mentioned Prey has multiple endings, and he did. He was there. He watched it live on stream. I got like 2 of the different endings in one session on the stream, and the way that they tie all of that game together is it's all basically one ending, and there's just a couple of different variations based on things that you did throughout the game. So it's like you don't really have a good ending, bad ending, so to sit like kind of, but it's
I
like
mean,
it really is all one ending. It's just how the game ends and then the wrap up after the credits. So
if I remember correctly, though, if you want to get to the ending, even at that point, you still once the ending happens, you still have the 2 choices, correct? If I remember correctly.
you do if um if you've got the more gooder ending. Like so if
It's been a while since I've heard that word.
yeah,
More
so
gooder.
so you're the whole thing ends up being, a simulation. And
Yeah.
so the endings to the game are how you exit the simulation. And so you've got one that's like really early, you skip a whole bunch of stuff and it's just like whatever piece, I'm out and the game's over, and it's like not a really fulfilling ending. You don't
Later,
get the full credits and
nerds.
everything. It's kind of like the joke / secret ending, but it is a way to complete the game. And then you've got the other 2 endings that are like, all right, this is the big finale of how I choose to make the decision to end the simulation. And then it's got the wrap up at the end where people talk about the things that you did. And so it's like, oh yeah, well, you looked like you were a really good person, like you showed really high empathy, you even saved this person when you didn't need to, but you did kill this guy and that wasn't really cool. And so it's like throughout the game you realize that throughout the game they have these little tickers basically for their morality system. It's like, oh, you saved this guy, +1 empathy for you. You killed this guy, -2 or -1, whatever. And there's a couple of those that are more important or more noteworthy.
Hey, Caleb, this is actually an important observation. What you're just saying, you have these choices and it's kind of like a ticker. It's kind of like almost like the very beginning of the game when you have the questionnaire you have to fill out. It's kind of
a little.
It kind of does that. It's almost like it's in a
A
weird
little.
kind of meta way.
Yeah.
Kind of think of it like that.
A little bit.
Those questions are like, hey, what do you do if this person is doing this? Blah, blah, blah.
There's only like
Those
5
people-
questions in the beginning, and
know,
they're
but
kind of
still, it's
weird. But yeah, I mean, a
kinda
little bit.
weird.
It is a little bit like that, trying to judge the decisions that you made, and like it's a personality test. It's like this
Yeah.
really big, elaborate personality test. So yeah, I can go along with that. But I liked how in the end it goes through and it tells you about some of the stuff that you did, because it's like, oh, you were like, oh, that actually was noteworthy enough to be given a line of dialogue in the game at the end, where you're having someone go, you killed me. I don't know why you killed me. Like, what's wrong with you? And it doesn't really give your decisions any more weight necessarily, but it makes it feel like it was actually a part of the game, and it wasn't just like I could have done whatever I wanted for those 6 or 8 7 hours, and it didn't matter at all. It felt acknowledged, I guess. Whether or not it mattered wasn't important to me, but it felt acknowledged. And so that's what I liked about having those choices through that game. And it was, if you have the good, I guess, ending, then you do get a hard and fast choice A, choice B, and those are very short little things at like the end of the credits. So it's not even like the whole.
It's like after all that, it gives you the choice of, do you still want to be a dick?
Yeah.
Or do you want to keep going to be
right? It's like
the ending.
The ending of everything is pretty. It's pretty short and almost lackluster, really. Like, though you go through this whole game, and it's like once the twist is revealed, it's like that's what they had. Like that was the ending of the game. Like, oh yeah, this is the twist. This is it. And
the twist.
But I just liked having some of those choices acknowledged through the end of it, because that's when I'm playing a game and I have some kind of moral conundrum, I agonize over those a lot of times, and for no apparent reason other than just like, God, I wonder if this is going to matter down the road. And it's usually from like Dark Souls days, when you didn't know if like by doing one thing or not doing one thing, if that would just completely ruin the side quest with that character for the rest of the game, and then you just have to do a whole nother playthrough to be able to get their reward. That's kind of where that anxiety comes from for me, because I just don't know. I'm like, I don't know, what is this going to change? And most of the time it doesn't change anything.
Caleb, I have a quick question. In terms of the story and the reveal of it, of the big twist, was there any subtle hints along the way, kind of like BioShock Infinite, that kind of gave you an idea of what was actually going on?
Yeah, I figured it out pretty early. I think I was on stream. No, maybe I wasn't on stream. I can't remember. It gives you hints and gives you things if you pay attention and you're listening to what's going on. And then there's a couple more blatant hint drops where it's like, oh hey, something's fucky, and you can kind of put that together and
something's fucky. Yeah.
And so yeah, it does. It doesn't just come right out of the blue, and it's well done. I liked it. I thought it was good. Wallace says, I can't remember correctly, but I think there's an old school game, Black and White, and had different choices from a game experience. You can go the black way or the white way, and it's kind of like Fable had that as well. Yeah, Black and White. I do remember that game.
I believe.
Yeah.
I played Black and White too.
Yeah,
I threw rocks at people.
But that was early on in like the choose your choice kind of like destiny, if you want to be the jerk or the good guy, because I don't really remember a lot of games kind of before that really kind of had like you choose which way you want to be. You want to be the good guy or you want to be the bad guy. Like I want to say that was like early on, those kind of games. And like if I remember, Black and White was pretty binary about that. It was you do this and you just do the good things, and that changes how the people look at you and how you look and all that stuff. Or you can go the bad way and you can look more disheveled and more evil looking, and everyone fears you and stuff like that.
Yeah, I do like games that have a little bit of that. You can kind of see how your decisions are affecting the world around you as you go through it. Like Dishonored did that. It was really like Dishonored's morality system and choice system was terrible, but it did have, if you went the bad way and you were killing more people, there would be more rats and like more plague and stuff around you. And if you were in the good way and didn't kill people, it would be cleaner. So I like ways that games implement something like that kind of gives your decisions a little bit more weight, or at least just a little bit more, you can see the effects of what you're doing in the game. So I like stuff like that.
Did that where if you did more evil things, you became uglier.
What which is sorry,
Knights of the Old Republic.
Knights of the Old Republic.
me, Sean and I, if we ever saw someone who wasn't attractive, we would say they were on the dark side of the force, which is completely ridiculous.
You're not
But
wrong.
like, why, if you're evil, do you have to just be like that? That didn't make, but that was part of the more evil you were, the uglier you got in that game.
That's funny.
Um,
Hmm.
a game that I was thinking of in terms of where you basically only get to choose one thing or another, and it didn't seem like a cop out or suck, is Soma.
Mm,
Was done by
yeah.
the same guys who did Amnesia, The Dark Descent. And basically, you can make choices throughout the game, but you get that you make throughout the game basically mentally gear you towards the final decision that you make.
Oh
And it's
yeah,
either
Yeah.
I
you
forgot all
lit
about that.
do you
Yeah.
transfer your consciousness and let everyone live in the computer so they all think that they're happy,
Hmm.
or do you basically blow it up because the
Oh, you're
truth is
talking
better?
Soma. No, yeah, yeah. I was about to say. I couldn't. I wasn't too sure if I caught you saying the name of the game, but
Yeah,
because I think
Soma.
Yeah.
you cut
That game
off
that
on
you
my.
played and recorded episodes and then never finished, and I was really mad at you, and I had to watch somebody
Oh
else
Yeah,
yeah,
I
finish it.
know. I'm
real
so
bad.
sorry. My girlfriend still gives me shit about that all the time. She's like, "I was enjoying that. Why
I
did you
was.
stop
I had to watch someone else beat
uh,
it.
playing Soma?"
right. So that was one thing where I liked where it's like even the good ending is kind of not necessarily good, and you know what
Hmm.
I mean? It's like, so what is, but the game gears you to the final choice, and then the decision kind of makes sense. It's not so much like, all right, well, because you suck the life out of these little girls, you
Right.
destroy the whole world, or they sit around you as you die in a retirement home. You know what I mean? So
And
it's
they're
not like
all
Right.
that.
married and very happy and blah blah.
Right. So that was one thing that I thought where it had a very different endings. Uh, they were decided at the very end, but it's like the game geared you up towards that. And so
Yeah, it had
this
like
is my
little mini
next question.
decisions in between.
Um, should be choices to make in a game? So it's like, Caleb, you were saying that you feel tense whenever you have to make a decision, but should that tension and feeling and emotions that you experience in a game, shouldn't that be the developer's choice and their writing and story that they make throughout the game to give you those emotions of tension where it's appropriate, as opposed to just artificially creating tension and making you choose something that may or may not carry out?
Yes and no. I mean, so what we've and maybe this doesn't quite answer the question, but I wanted to kind of steer it this way. We've talked about um decisions and choices that we make and their impact on the story, specifically on like the ending of the game, but choices that I like to see that I also can agonize over, because that's just the kind of person I am, are more around gameplay and how you choose to play through the game, or how you choose to solve a particular puzzle, or how you choose to get to the ending of the game. I think that those are the kinds of decisions that are really valuable for games to have, because it makes you feel like your experience of the game was what you wanted it to be, and you got to just enjoy it and play it, and it wasn't linear. And even if the game ends up being like a one or two ending kind of game, your path through it felt unique to you. And so I guess to come back to your question, Josh, you're saying, do I think that the meaningless decisions that are posed as like a potentially story driving decision that really aren't, would I rather just not have those? If I'm understanding the question right, I guess I would say yes. I would rather those just not be there, because if it's, as I do think about the long term of my character. And I mean, people do like to role play, I guess, and you want to be whatever, but I don't care so much about that if the decision isn't going to have any bearing on anything. Like if my dialogue option changes the rest of, even if it's just like that particular side quest, or that, like if they have multiple lines of dialogue that you can have, okay, that is a decision that has a branching effect, even if it is a very small effect. Okay, that's fine. I'm happy to make those kinds of decisions. But if it's like it doesn't do anything, even for the side quest where that decision is found, yeah, I'd rather the developer give me more impactful decisions where it matters. So yeah, so like you're saying, the tension that I feel in that moment where I'm trying to decide, do I do this, do I not do this, I'd rather that be somewhere where it actually is going to end up being useful or making a difference in some way. It doesn't even have to be like an ending or the main story arc, but just some way that it's relevant.
Like, well, so like, it's to answer like my own question, it's like it's kind of weird because games where I seem to like games more where they give you the illusion of choice and then the choices end up not mattering because of an actual reason. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Not just because they were like, we gave, so like
Yeah.
Club. I don't want to really go into depth at all about that, but and you later find out that that kind of thing was going to happen feels terrible. And so like I liked that, but then it's like you've got games where with the second Infamous, which was a really good game, definitely better than the first one, you've got the completely evil ending where you destroy everything, and you've got the good ending where you know you sacrifice yourself. But the thing is the game only makes sense if you do the good. It literally doesn't make sense if you do the bad ending because there's nothing else you can do. It's like the story just feels like it was cut short because the game was like, you know, we had the choice system in the first game, we'll have it in the second one, but really the actual ending that matters and seems to have any weight in any way is the good ending. So it's like, why did you even have the bad ending when it clearly feels like it was just there because it was in the first game?
Mm. Yeah, that makes sense. So I think Wallace is making a comment where you know, like right now it's a bunch of people who sit around and program all the different ways that you can go, and it'd be more interesting if the game had like an AI director kind of thing that would choose the behavior or choose, you know, the branching, the procedural generation in a way, or the modular design of the game based on previous decisions that you've made. And that I think that we have some games that have dabbled in some of that. And I definitely would like to see more of that in the future. And yeah, I agree with you. I think you would like Prey for that reason, Josh. Like for that exact reason that like you have things that you can do, you have choices that you can make whether to help people or not, and it ends up not super mattering, but it makes sense for the story. Like the thing that the big twist at the end, it makes sense in it. I like that. But I guess to continue talking about Prey, because that's what's on my mind, choice around what I was talking about were less choice in a story arc sense, but more choice in a game design sense. One thing that really impressed me with Prey, and I think that's one of the things that is part of the fascination and why Breath of the Wild is doing so well. Hello, Kai. Rishiti. I don't know. Kai. Hello.
Close enough.
Had to try 4
Give an
times.
A for effort.
Had to try 4 times. But I think that's one of the things that I like about, from what I've seen of Breath of the Wild, and one of the things that really makes the game interesting to me is the options that you have to go through the game and really do it in any order that you want to do. I mean, like Corey was making videos for our channel on end game stuff, but he hadn't done a single story quest. Like he'd gone through
one
and just done
Yep.
all of this other stuff completely out of order. And that was like exactly how I play.
He only had like 4 towers done, and it's like
he had
he's
like
just doing
he had
stuff.
just
He
the 3
literally-
basic regular hearts, and everything else was temporary health. Like he just didn't
Oh my
he didn't
God.
matter. And you know, there's things that you can interact with in Breath of the Wild, like, oh, there's this ice block blocking your, you know, a tower or something. You can throw a bomb at it. You can light an arrow on fire and melt it that way. Like there's lots of different ways for you to solve the little puzzles that are interesting little micro choices, but also just like you can play through the game and rush the story, or you can go and explore and do all kinds of stuff and out of order and just enjoy the game and build up the character in the way that you want. And that doesn't have any bearing on the story arc of the game, but it makes the gameplay experience a lot more personalized. And that's what I liked about Prey. In some one way or another, like you have access to the whole ship. It's not easy access necessarily, but you can get around to the different places without having to do a lot of the major story events. And I ended up exploring like the entire ship before I'd done like the 4th step in the main storyline. And Stuart was watching most of the playthrough, and he's just laughing because I'm like in these areas that I'm not necessarily not supposed to be in, but I definitely have no reason to be there other than I just felt like exploring everything.
This seems like a cool spot. What's in here?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I just did all of these things. So I ended up like uncovering big pieces of the map and finding things that gave me a lot of advantage towards the end of the game because I had already searched through all of these things before everything went to hell, and it was a lot easier for me to go through and look through it. But it made the game a lot more fun because it's like, oh, well, I don't have to go and do the next main quest. Like I can go and dick around in this other place for a while and do the, just do it completely out of order. And those are the kinds of choices that I like to see in games. I mean, do you have any that are like that you can think of, or is that not the kind of choice that you guys like?
So that's actually not what I think of at all when I think of choices in game. But you're
okay.
absolutely right. I think that the choice to play a game the way that you want to play is extremely important.
Oh,
And
yeah,
I feel like, I mean, but the thing is like, at the same time, I love the Uncharted series, and even Bayonetta, and it's like those are very linear games that tell a story, and the gameplay shines, and you like the characters, things like that.
there's no
But
choices. You do your thing. You go through it.
right,
You're good. Yeah.
actually, that's a super duper interesting point where the choice is not necessarily built into the story, but it's how you play. And I think that is I've enjoyed most throughout my long time here on this planet are the ones where you could play the way that you wanted to. And it's, I mean, BioShock, you can kind of like do that by choosing which upgrades to get before you realize that telekinesis is completely broken.
Again,
You know what I mean?
beat
It's
the
like
entire game of
Yeah.
BioShock 1 with a freaking wrench and powers. Like that's so cool that you can do that.
you can beat the entire first Dead Cell armor and only the plasma cutter because your roommate lied to you. And so
I'm
every
so sorry.
every time.
To this day, I feel
It's,
bad.
you should.
But you did so well, and you were like a paper tiger with how little armor you had, and you still did it. And you had like no inventory, and granted, you just used the plasma cutter, which you could do, and you did so well. I'm
I
so proud
did
of you.
so that's such a good point. I didn't even think about that, but I mean, just like you said, Breath of the Wild, there's literally no order that you can beat Ganon without fighting any of the 4 beasts, which is crazy.
You
So
can go
yeah,
straight
it's
to him. Yeah.
yeah, I think the games where necessarily story related, but it's how you choose to play the game is it has to be insanely harder to make. Um, but you're right, a fulfilling game, even like Dark Souls or
Mhm.
Demon Souls, even like Demon Souls. It's
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's like you choose the order that you fight the bosses, but there's kind of like an intended way because clearly you're not strong enough,
Mhm.
but that doesn't mean you can't beat these guys with just a stick and no clothes on. You know what I mean? It's just
Right.
Mhm.
it's such a neat way. But then it's like, is that just a gameplay thing? Are we just appreciating the gameplay as opposed to a story element of the game? I
Yeah, I
don't
mean
know.
it's definitely a different kind of conversation because it is like, do our choices matter from a story sense, or is the gameplay designed to be to allow for more freedom? I mean that is definitely um, not so much of a philosophical or a we're not talking about the story then at that point. It's two very different paths in talking about choice. Wallace says he likes the games that have the good or bad decisions, so you can be an asshole through the whole game and want to be the bad guy, and then at the very end choose to help everyone.
Well, our final question will be do you so I've all right, I've got the final question will be a very fast question at the very end. So
Okay.
let me actually write this down and then but yeah, so
Okay.
keep going.
Yeah. So the choice. So I haven't heard from you, Marshall. Which do you prefer? Which kind of? I mean, again, I just said it's not comparing the same two things. I'm going to ask you the question anyway. But which kind of choices are more interesting to you? More gameplay driven choices, or story that like have a lasting impact on the ending of the game or the main story arcs?
You know, I think it could be on a game-to-game basis. Like, if I'm going into a game really going for the story, like, I'm gonna want to care a little bit more about that instead of necessarily gameplay choices. Like, again, playing Uncharted, I know there's not gonna be really much gameplay choice. It is what it is, and that's fine. But like, and again, for Uncharted, there's no real story choice and all that. But if there was, I would be kind of vested in it because it seemed like a good story and all that. And you know, the game on its foundations are top notch. But if you have something like Breath of the Wild, I would care more definitely about gameplay choice because of what you can do in that game. And story wise, it kind of takes a back seat for me with that.
Mhm.
And maybe that's why I don't like Far Cry 5's ending, because it gives you such options to do what you want to do in that game. And then it just takes it all away from you. And it sucks. And it just pulls the rug out from under you. And that's why maybe I hate the story that the way it ends that much.
Mhm.
Maybe that's why. I don't know. By the way,
Alright.
Josh, if I remember correctly, with Infamous 2, half as long, twice as bright. I gotta try. I know.
Oh yeah,
Oh, there's a depressing fucking ending. I'm sorry.
yeah. The first Infamous was pretty good. The second Infamous was really good, and if you did the good ending,
Let go.
yeah, it was awesome. But Second Son, and I just couldn't get into it. I was just not enjoying it at all.
I think it's because of the setting. It was kind of drab, and then also it didn't really do a lot to change the gameplay from the first one. From what I saw, it just kind of looked like another one, and I'm just like, whatever.
Yeah.
You guys ready for the final question?
Let's do it. What's this final question?
Take
On
or
your
death?
first run through, go good or you always go
I
bad?
always go good.
Yeah, I always go good.
I always go good because I don't like being an asshole.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because being an asshole in the bad side is like you're really a dick, and I'm just like,
Yeah, it's
well,
so
that's just kind of rude.
it's so evil.
So I always intend to play a game a second time and choose bad, and I never do. I basically
do the
like
same
4 or 5
thing.
bad choices.
I
And I'm
always
like, I
go
can't.
good. It's like I
can't do
don't
it.
want to be an ass. I just don't like it.
Looking this up because I saw this a long time ago, but Americans, like 70% of them choose to go good the first run through, and like 80% of like I think it was Europeans choose the evil the first time through,
That's
which was
fascinating.
interesting.
Really? That's really interesting. I
It
wonder.
could just it could I just said Europeans just as like a vague like bubble.
Somewhere
I don't know if
not
it was
United
specifically
States, North America region. Yes.
or if it was like more specifically like just the UK. I forget, but it was a poll.
Japan. Who knows?
Exactly remember, but yeah, it was that was the general consensus of that, which I thought was
Yeah.
pretty funny. I'm trying to find it right now, and I can't. But I absolutely remember seeing that in that way.
Well, I will say that most of the, well, maybe 50-50, but at least a large part of why I typically go the good ending, or not the good ending, but like make the good choices, be the nice guy through games, is because those are typically the ones that lead to more side quests. And I'm the kind of person that,
Yes.
like, I want to do all of the things. I want to
Mhm.
explore every like dialogue option and go through all of the side quests and all the little like meaningless
Not
stuff.
only
So
that,
if I'm a
Caleb, I
bad guy,
think
I
it
don't
also
want to close
progresses the
anything off
story.
making someone angry at me. What's that?
Caleb, I can't. I honestly I can't remember, but I know there. I swear to God, there's an example. Usually, if you go the good route, it actually furthers the actual game itself instead of just it cutting off and saying, "Oh, that's it, the end. You're done." And I'm trying now to remember what. Oh God, the name escapes me. But I know there was one where it's like it actually kept going even more. I'm like, I'm surprised the game hasn't ended yet because of like a decision you made. And unfortunately I just can't remember now.
Hmm.
Maybe that's why also I like to go good, just because it's like usually there's more to the game if you keep going that route.
Yeah, that's usually my thing. Is I don't want to cut off potential like opened up quest or something, so I just go I'm nice to people and I go the good route. But I do enjoy coming back to a game afterwards and playing through and being very, very not good. I've been going through a side playthrough of Prey, and after trying to help everyone through the first game, I didn't end up helping everyone, but I'm going through this next time like being very much I don't care about other people, and it's a little difficult in some spots. I'm like, I want to go, I want to do this quest, or I want to help this person out, but I'm not going to. So it is interesting, but it's funny that all three of us we go the good route.
Hey, we're not getting any stream from
Yeah, OBS is showing.
Okay, now we do.
Dead.
We got it.
I think it's back now.
Oh, are we actually back
We're
now?
back.
Ooh,
We're
man,
back.
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
we're back.
I've lost faces for you guys, so.
Oh, that's a hell of an ending, I'll say.
That's fine. Well, we're streaming right now, so Caleb, give the wrap.
Yeah, okay. Well, we're back up. We don't have the face cams for Marshall and Josh. Sorry about that, but thanks everybody for hanging out with us. This podcast, we've been talking about the illusion of choice and whether those choices matter in games and how they can affect the ending. And if you don't like the story, you're probably not going to like the ending choices that you're given, like Marshall was talking about with Far Cry 5. Yeah, I'm a little flustered right now, so sorry. But thanks for hanging out with us. We do this every Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Thanks to Wallace and Eric for hanging out in the chat. If you want to check out our random live streams of other games, we do that on Twitch. We are Random Respawn. We also have a YouTube channel, Random Respawn Plays. It's just where we can upload those live streams if you don't happen to catch us on Twitch and the VODs get erased. So sorry for the technical difficulties right here at the end, but thanks everybody for hanging out, and we'll see you next time.
Goodbye.